Welcome to the Rock the Stage Show. Each week, international media expert Rich Bontrager has in-depth and personal conversations with celebrities, top leaders, authors, speakers, and media professionals. Now, from the Rock the Stage studios, here's your host, the Trigger, Rich Bontrager.
Welcome back to another edition of Rock the Stage Show. It's Sunday night, 7 p.m. And yes, we're here once again with another great show. And we're going to get back in the topic of leadership. I love talking about leadership. But let me ask you, do you struggle with the toxic workplace culture? Is that part of your leadership struggle? Maybe you're frustrated by the constant turnover that's draining your team's potential. You know, the revolving door. But ask yourself this question today as we start. If your best people keep walking out the door, is it a staffing problem or could it be a culture problem? Tonight, Rock the Stage Show, we're going to tackle that tough reality of why employees leave, why leaders have the struggles they have, and much more, and how to create a culture where they never, ever want to walk out the door. Now, wouldn't that be great? Get ready for a practical strategy discussion that could change the way that you lead and build your own business to be a great destination workplace. And your people will enjoy it, and they'll thrive in that environment. Betsy Allen-Manning is a powerhouse leadership speaker, best-selling author, and the founder of the award-winning firm that transforms turnover companies into destination workplaces. I absolutely love that. She's turned to over 15,000 leaders and teams. She's worked with organizations from Toshiba, CVS, and to the United States Department of Defense. Here to help us to put purpose back into the workplace, please welcome the culture queen herself, Betsy Allen-Manning, to Rock the Stage Show. And welcome, Betsy.
Hey, thanks so much, Rich. Happy to be here with you today.
I love destination. I love traveling, going cool places, but you are the culture queen and the destination queen, aren't you?
Oh, yes, and a different type of destination, right? Instead of going on vacation to your destination, it's going to work every single day for 8 hours a day plus, right? And making that your actual destination and wanting to be there.
Exactly. So vacations are fun. Why can't work be a fun, exciting, thriving place? Why is the life sucked out of work so often?
Yeah, I think people are still operating like they did 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago and thinking of the same hierarchical type leadership strategy where it's like, I come in, I'm your commander, and this is how it trickles down, and you're going to do what I say because I said so, parenting approach. And we expect people to just stay. And back in the day, Rich, we did, didn't we?
Yes.
We stayed for that. People could say anything, do anything. It didn't matter. You were loyal because that's how it was back in the day. And it's not that way anymore. The pandemic shifted everything for us. And I think it woke a lot of people up to, I don't want to be in an environment anymore where I feel like I'm belittled. I'm not valued. I am not rewarded for things that I do. And it's a toxic place. I'm out of here.
I think you watched my social media post yesterday about the two different leadership types. The ones that are the old guard, like you just described so well, and the ones that are more purpose and personal in leadership.
Yes.
And that's the big shift you're talking about, because even though we're virtual a lot now, we're much more personal and intimate than we ever were before.
We're much more. And I always say that there's 5 types of leaders, right? You've got the dictator, the one that rules on fear and punishment, which there's still many of those out there. I hear about them all the time, unfortunately. And they're the ones that people will leave the most, right? People don't leave bad leaders, they leave bad companies. I also say they leave toxic workplaces and toxic leaders, because that is the number one reason people that leave, right? We've got the paycheck leader, people that are saying, you know what, I'm so burned out, I don't care to mentor anybody or do anything above what my paycheck requires. And paycheck leaders only ever produce paycheck employees. We have the promoted leader, people that are basically getting thrown in the deep end and saying, learn how to swim.
Yes.
And people don't stick around for that anymore, Rich, because we were trained on the job back in the day. When you learned leadership while you were doing it, people won't stick around for leaders who don't know what they're doing. So you need them trained and skilled, which is the next type of leader, the skilled leader. right? The one that goes to the conferences, watches,
Mhm.
watches things on whether it's social media or webinars, attends your virtuals, right? And
Right.
constantly growing and learning more about themselves, developing themselves. And then there's the impact leader. It's what I call them. You may call them something different, but the impact leader leaves people better off and than before they came along. And that's, I think, today's leader should aspire to be.
Dead on. Now, your personal mission for your company is to help organizations develop a workplace culture of purpose, accountability,
Yes.
and loyalty.
Yes.
I'm curious, which one of those three is the hardest one to help companies with?
Ooh. Well, they all that's hard. This is like this vicious cycle because if
Yeah.
you don't have purpose, people aren't going to stay. If you don't have accountability, people aren't loyal to people that aren't accountable. You can't hold people accountable to fulfill and instill that purpose.
Right.
And without loyalty, you don't have the rest as well. So it's really hard. I will say, because I work with a lot of executives where when we do these culture revamp sessions,
Yeah.
culture strategy sessions, and accountability is the biggest part.
So, culture, from my viewpoint and what I've coached, is culture comes from that top leader. The DNA
Yes.
comes from them. But I see a lot of top leaders abdicating that, saying it's going to happen. We'll build our culture. And do you see that happen very often where they don't accept the mantle of responsibility for themselves?
All the time. All the time. It's funny because studies show 94% of executives say, I know a distinct and purpose driven culture will give me a competitive business advantage for
Yeah.
attracting and retaining the best talent, but I don't really know what it is or how to build it. That's where they have the struggles. So they outsource culture to somebody else, to usually an HR director or a culture coordinator they may have. And then they just say, I hope it works out, right? We all know that saying, hope is not a strategy. So, and what happens is you get whatever kind of deep culture you create or the person that's in charge of it creates, it becomes your default. And
Yeah.
oftentimes the default is not what they really wanted, but they say, well, I don't have time to do it myself, or I don't know how to do it myself.
Well, that's why they hire great speakers like you to come in and talk to their executive board, talk to their team, be on stage. They do abdicate it and they do call us and say, can you come teach us what we don't know? How does
Yes.
that feel sometimes to be the one from the outside to fix their problem?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have a job if they didn't have problems, right? So, but in a perfect world, we wouldn't have jobs, right? Because everybody would
Right.
be doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
I think people have gotten so busy, Rich, that they forget what their purpose is as a leader or as a company owner, as an executive. They forget what their purpose truly is. And when you remind them, I don't know for you, but for me, that's my favorite part, is simply reminding them of, this is why you're doing this. This is your
Yes.
purpose. You can't do anything or build this company without people. And if you don't create a place where they actually want to come and not just show up every day as a paycheck employee, but they actually engage in the culture, they contribute ideas, they promote your company to other people to come and work there as well. And they stay with you long term because they love it there. When you do it right, culture and leadership,
Yeah.
that's what gets people to stay. When you get it wrong, that's when you see the four biggest challenges we're experiencing in the workforce today, which is to attract, engage, motivate, and retain talent.
So before we get deeper in the destination workplace, and you want to back it up a little bit, you were a singer. Now you're a public speaker. How did you make all that transition from singing to speaking to now consulting and coaching leadership?
Yeah, yeah. Kind of a strange way to go about it. Singing was my life. I had an amazing career traveling the world for over 12 years as a professional singer, and I did shows in Vegas, Germany, China, all over the world. And it was absolutely amazing. I loved every minute of it. And until I got the nodules and lost a lot of my upper range. And
Oh,
every now and then you may hear me sing in a keynote. Every now and then there's certain speeches where it may a little bit comes out. But from there, I hung up the vocal cords. I went into the real world, into the hotel industry,
mm,
where, Rich, they don't give you a standing ovation when you do a good job.
I have a lot of friends in that business. I understand.
Yeah, I kind of think we should implement that, but fun cultures they do. But yeah, and I went to the hotel industry, which is, you're working 15, 16-hour days, especially as a manager, nights, weekends, holidays. And I started off working for a company that ruled on fear and punishment, and I accepted it for 6 years. Verbal abuse, emotional abuse, just like no sense of well-being whatsoever. And I just thought, well, this is what the workplace is like in the real world, so I guess I just need to put up with it.
Ooh.
And moved into a leadership role and found myself starting to lead like that. And I knew it's not what I should be doing. And kind of called my dad up and I said, Dad, I don't think I'm meant for management. I really stink at this. I'm not meant to be a manager at all. And my dad was a former Marine.
Oh,
So yeah, or once a Marine, always a Marine. So he served as a Marine back in the day. And he said, the Marine came out. He's like, I didn't raise my daughter to be a quitter. He said, Betsy, he said, listen, what have you done to work on yourself? And I said, well, my company doesn't send me to these great, seminars or stuff. And he said, they don't put them on themselves. And he said, honey, something profound that actually changed my life forever. He said, leadership's not a position or title. It's a responsibility. You're responsible for developing yourself so that you're capable of developing others.
standing ovation.
Right. And then he said something even better. He said, if you're not willing to step up to that responsibility, you should be willing to step down.
So lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Yes. And as harsh and brutal as that was, it put me on my path to learning everything I could about being a better leader and creating a workplace where people would actually enjoy. And as I started to apply what I was learning, because we know knowledge is not power, applied knowledge is power. I started to apply what I was learning, and my department started to really just scale. We were doing well in production. We were doing well as far as morale goes. And people were saying, what are you doing? That got me noticed by the Beverly Hilton. And that got me noticed by Wynn and Encore hotels, where they brought me on to hire and train staff for a $60 million venue. So it just catapulted because I was applying what I'm learning. And as a leader, when you show up and you aim to be the best leader you can be, and you start applying what you're learning, doors open, whether it's within your company or somewhere else.
So I'm curious, with that whole transition you described, your passion on stage, your passion as a performer. A lot of leaders struggle with the idea there's a performance to leading sometime. Did that passion and showmanship help you with this transition, do you think? Was it easier for you to get out there and present it with heart?
What's strange is, so when I started in the real world, I've always been kind of a motivational junkie. So I'm one of those people that probably annoyed a lot of people with my positive attitude. And I ended up marrying a Brit, go figure, who are usually known for being pessimistic, but he loves that part. But people would make fun of me at first. Even the owner of that company that I worked for was like, "You're a freak."
Yes.
Like happy all the time. People would say that. And, it's, well, this is who I am. And I realized I gravitated toward the stage again, because when I finally figured it out, how to be a great leader, how to build an extraordinary, what I call a destination workplace culture, it became my mission to make sure, first of all, that leaders never, ever mistreat people again. That is one of my core missions inside. And that's why purpose, leading with a sense of purpose, accountability, creates that loyalty. But that is so huge for me, to hold other leaders accountable and say, you cannot treat people this way. They deserve better.
Yes. So, okay, now let's dive into the meat of the conversation here. You coined the phrase destination workplace.
Yes.
I'm curious, what does it feel like? Not just look like, but what does it feel like to be in that destination workplace?
I love that you asked that, because I always say words don't define your culture. Employee experiences do.
Yes.
And oftentimes we have a destination workplace culture audit where we come in and audit the culture. And when we sit down with executives in our strategy session afterwards, I first ask them in the core areas that we're asking about in this assessment, in the study, in the audit, we ask them these core questions, and we say, okay, in the strategy session, where do you think your employees rated this company in these areas? So we get their view first.
Yeah.
Then I present the results. And it is such a disconnect.
Yes.
That moment that they realize that disconnect, it's just, you see the light bulbs go off and you see the egos in the room go
Oh, yeah.
back. And we have to face, as CEOs, we have to face the reality of where we're currently at in our culture in order to get to where we want to be. So to answer your question, then when you it's like, if you walked into a place where it's a toxic workplace culture.
Yes.
So let's start there, because that experience is, what are the things that we're experiencing? So employees are gossiping about one another. I mean, oftentimes leaders are the ones gossiping about other people. People are not proud to work at that company.
Yes.
They're actually talking to their customers about how much they hate their company. The productivity is lower, morale is low. We could probably go on and on about this, right? Yeah. So when I walk into a company, I can see right away, by the way the leaders treat people and by the way the teams are treating each other, whether they're a destination workplace or not. Just by looking at the way people are treat one another, the way they communicate with one another, their sense of purpose in their day. So when a destination workplace, people actually feel a sense of purpose in what they're doing. And that's the biggest thing.
So let me ask you this, because one of my pet peeves is, especially if you are a top tier leader, maybe secondary tier, but showing up for meetings, being on time. My idea is, if you're a top level, be early, set the agenda, set the vibe. When they walk in the room, you greet them, you're leading before you actually lead the content. Do you agree that a lot of them fail just at that simple step of being there before the others show up?
Oh my goodness. So what's funny is modeling your culture, the core values that you have, the culture, the excellence that you should have, the integrity that you should have as a leader, or just in your culture in general. The biggest failure that we see leaders have when it comes to implementing culture are the leaders don't take accountability for modeling the new behavior that they want to see. So they don't know how to convey the new behaviors or the values, and they don't know how to discipline or have coaching conversations around them, but they're not modeling themselves. And that's the biggest mistake that we'll see leaders make, is that you want to change your company and your culture. It starts with you.
Right. They want to change everybody else, but there is the top down. It still works that way. There is top down, and you have to have the vision, the passion, and dare I say, the personality, especially through the virtual world now. Your smile says a lot before you even start a meeting. And a lot of leaders are stumbling over that of, I've always been serious. I've sat behind the desk. I got my distance for everybody. Look, there's no back seats anymore in the virtual. And your personality, your eyes, your passion of your heart pumping out has to come through now, right? And that's a big shift.
Yes. Well, not only that, people feed off of your energy.
Yeah.
So if I show up, especially virtually, if I show up for a virtual, I'm like, hey, what's up? Hi. So here's what we're going to talk about today. And you may be a quieter person, and that's okay if you're more reserved. Try, though, and bring that energy up just a little bit, because people follow passion. They want a passionate leader. They want someone that's going to inspire them just from the way that they show up with that energy. You're so right on that, Rich.
Now, 90% of companies that struggle with attraction, engagement, retention, that mostly you deal with, you do have that scoring thing. So talk us through a little bit. What do you look for? What are you asking for? You don't have to give it all away, but what's some of the goodies here?
Yeah, well, so when we're doing a culture audit, we actually conducted a national workplace trend study for 2025 in partnership with the U.S. Census Bureau and the Center for Generational Kinetics. A lot of words there, so I'm going to get that right. And we wanted to know what makes a destination workplace. And they confirmed in our study, employees, we're asking employees, mind you, okay, at all levels. And they said there are 5 employee experiences they need to have in order to consider you a destination workplace. So those 5 are, first of all, your culture. First and foremost, they want to know there's a purpose-driven culture. You have strong mission values. You have a DNA that they can actually wrap their heads around, and they know how to show up and what's expected of them every single day in this culture.
Yeah.
They want to know that they have a leadership team that they can trust. Trust is huge. For this, especially this younger generation, trust, transparency, modeled behavior, leaders that are willing to actually have those tougher conversations. They want those people in place. They want to know that they have growth opportunities. And we found in our studies that a lot of companies say, oh yeah, we offer a lot of growth opportunities. But when we ask the employees, they say, I have no idea what the career path looks like in this company. So mapping that out and actually having those conversations, career pathing conversations,
Yes.
helps them. And the other two are a sense of team. They want to know that even virtually, you want to know, hey, I'm connecting with and collaborating with so-and-so. How does that work? What does the communication look like with us? Are we innovating together as a team as well? Succeeding together, failing together, but we're doing this together, feeling that sense of team? Because virtually you feel like you're just by yourself over there. And then the last one is well-being. People want to know that a company cares about their well-being. So when we hit all 5 of these areas and you get it right in all 5 of these areas, that's where employees say, you know what, this feels like a destination workplace. This is a place I want to apply to work at. This is a place I want to stay long-term.
Now, one of the things I've run into, and I've coached this specifically because, again, it's a personal pet peeve of mine. Companies will have that orientation. You come on in and you say, we're happy to have you here. We're going to get you on that training path. We're going to move you up. And we have great values here. But the values are not on the walls. They're not anywhere to be seen or heard. You never talk about it again. But I believe values drive the course of the leadership, the company, the culture that you're describing.
Yes.
Where do we miss the gap here? Why are we missing the gap of making those values seen and heard everywhere?
Yes. So that's one of the core things we do in our culture strategy session. That's one of the first things that we look at are your core values and how you're actually living them out. So what's interesting is I went to this bank one time and I walked in and they had on the walls these beautiful mission, vision, core values. And they were so good, so good. Here's the problem though, with having it just on the walls. I went up to the lady at the front and I said, I love your core values. You must love working here. And she goes, honey, that's where they stay.
That's exactly it.
They don't come off the walls. So it's important, yes, to have them visible, right? Where people can see them. But it's also important to know they're not meant to just exist on the walls of your company. They're meant to live in the hearts and the actions of your team. So we do this a lot. One of the ways we did this at Win and Encore hotels was telling stories around our core values. So we would walk past this employee wall of fame, and you have employee of the month, January to December, and you'd have, normally it's a person's picture with the month, right? And their name. Beneath that on this wall was a story that a customer had written in about this employee, or another employee had written in about what this employee did to go above and beyond for them. Beneath that was which of our 4 core values it aligned with. That when you walk past and you read these stories, you think, I could do that. What does that look like in my role? What could I do? Because you want to show up bigger and better because you see people are actually getting recognized for that. And people are craving recognition in their job. Yes. 69% of millennials say, if you just recognize me more often, I'll actually stay with the company longer and work harder. Just if you're recognized.
And it's not when you retire with the gold watch anymore. That's not recognition.
Right. Yeah.
So because again, that's what we saw growing up was, hey, they recognized me at the end of my career. People want to be recognized while they're in the career.
And daily. They don't want to wait till your once a year recognition awards ceremony. Right. And this is every day showing up. It's so easy to see what's wrong.
Catching them in the good is an afterthought. Catching them in the bad is what we all feel. They're watching over my shoulder. They're going to catch me in the bad. Can anyone just pop in my office and see me crushing it today and go, thank you very much. You're awesome.
Yeah. But the thing is I talk to a lot of managers who say, well, why should I have to thank people for doing a job and getting paid to do in the first place? And I get that.
Right.
However, I always answer it with a question. If it helps you get more out of people by genuinely appreciating them, valuing them, thanking them more often, isn't it worth it? And you'll have to figure that out for yourself. The people that are watching this right now, because you'll see it happen once you start recognizing people more.
Well, and one of the shifts I know you talk about, it's for years, it was like, this is business. You work, you go home, you punch the clock, literally punch a clock and you go home. You're now talking about the shift to they want to feel like a family. They
Yeah.
want to be in the trenches, valued. There's much more camaraderie. How does that really play out now? How do you create this family without some people saying, you cross the line?
Yeah. Well, and here's the interesting thing. So there's been a study, and it's about 50-50 right now on people that want to call it a family, right? Because family means different things to different people.
Right.
So, but feeling like you're part of an extremely valued team. And what that looks like is you're not just recognized from top down, you're recognized from peer to peer as well. That's being part of family. We do these collaborate and innovate sessions with companies where we bring them together, bring your biggest challenges, and we're going to come together and we brainstorm as a team together on what it could look like to solve these problems. Does two things for you. It brings your team together for a purpose beyond the fluffy team building that we're seeing out there. People don't want to be brought together for just it. I think we need it. Do think we need it maybe quarterly. However, they want to be brought together for a purpose, for a strategy. So those collaborate, innovate sessions really help them think together, brainstorm together, and realize they actually need each other.
So give me a couple of examples here of how to actually elevate the experience, because I think the experiential stuff you discuss through your keynotes, we crave experience. We want to have a sensory experience. Even at work, we want to have an experience. So how can leaders do that better?
So I'll have to put it in the form of a story, like a past experience from working with Disney back in the day.
Absolutely.
At Disney back in the day, I worked on one of their cruise ships, the Disney Wonder. It was absolutely amazing. Yes. And they actually send you to Disney University if you're in a management role. And it was so much fun. I realized they live their core values.
Mhm.
They live them and they show you how to live them. So one of the things that Disney always does is they look at with their customers, they look at these friction points. So they
Mhm.
say, when would customers be unhappy at every single part of their journey on the cruise ship in the parks? Well, one of the things they found is when kids are standing in line on the cruise ship and they're waiting to go into the atrium to see the princesses, they're getting tired, they're running around, they're starting to bang on the floor. I mean, they're crying, whatever it is that kids do. So they thought, well, we have to do something that's a friction point for the
Yes.
parents and for the kids. So they started to send some of the other Disney characters out, Goofy, those ones. They sent them out to go around and start talking to the kids and saying, hey, and playing with them. They passed out some of these toys to them, like these little giveaways. So the first thing we do as leaders, if we want to improve the experience for
Mhm.
people, then we need to look at, well, what are the friction points in every part of the employee journey? And if you can fix those friction points and say, how do we make this a better experience for them? Then the experience becomes better. But you have to be willing, it takes time. Putting in this effort, first of all, just to discuss what the friction points are. And then from there, well, what does it look like to actually fix this? And then assigning accountability and
Mhm.
people actually doing it and putting benchmarks and metrics in place to make sure it's a success and you actually get to your end goal.
Absolutely. I mean, and anytime people talk Disney on the show, you get bonus points. Just so you
Oh,
know that. You have bonus points now.
Disney.
Because studying Disney has amazing application to business. Studying Disney truly does. Um, what's some of those early warning signs of a toxic environment? Let's go back there for a second, because
Mm.
some people settle for less and they don't want to rock the boat. But what are some of those early warning signs?
So there's a couple things that you look at when we're setting non-negotiable behaviors with companies as part of our culture strategy session. One of the top things we look at is the gossip. Gossip is like cancer,
Yes.
right? It spreads to everybody else, and it will absolutely kill the morale and the culture of the company. So one of the things Dave Ramsey does, I remember listening to a show one time, and he was saying on his Entre Leadership show, he was saying, we have a no gossip, non-negotiable, 3 strikes, you're out. And you have to describe for each non-negotiable toxic behavior what it actually looks like, because gossip may look different to one person than it does to somebody else. So they explain gossip could be, it's not just at the water cooler, guess what happened to so-and-so. Gossip is also saying, oh, did you know what Rich just did? He did this and that's affecting my work. But I said it to someone that can't actually help the situation. That's gossip. I need to be going to someone above me. If I'm not able to go to Rich himself, I need to go to someone above me that can help me fix the situation. So when you start to see gossip, when you start to see people that are in a burnt out stage, so they're not showing up as them best selves anymore, right? We all know everybody has a baseline. Not everybody shows up like we do, Rich, where we're like on a 10 at all times.
I'm 15 minutes early. Come on.
I know. It's funny because if I ever showed up at a level 5, just because I was just not feeling as, energetic, maybe I didn't have double coffee that day, they would say, what's wrong? What's going on? I'm like, no, my baseline. Like, I get my baseline, but just having a chill day. So knowing people's baselines and understanding when they're in a state of burnout, because usually we'll have lower productivity, you'll have lower morale during that time. Toxic work environment, you'll see things like the way people speak to each other. Really looking at the way people talk to one another is huge. And that comes from leadership down.
Yeah. Well, that goes to communication. And a lot of leaders that I work with, and it used to be, say it 7 times and it's stuck. Then it moves like, say it 15 times and it's stuck. Now it's like 25 times. You have to repeat your communication to make it stick. It's going back to culture and values. If you are not repeating those all the time as a leader, you may be sick of repeating yourself, but they still aren't getting it, right?
You mentioned core values. Those need to be brought into every single coaching conversation that you have. Your core values are a thread for everything throughout their employee journey. So when you hire, core values need to be ingrained in them. When you're onboarding, core values. When you're, as a leader, you're developing, training people. When you're recognizing people, you're recognizing them, like I said, for those core values, disciplining them around those coaching conversations, even offboarding, you would bring them in. So it's saying the things, but it's also knowing, hey, I've told you this about 5 times now. It's going to be a different conversation if I have to bring this particular thing up again. Not the core values, but maybe something that you've said to them enough times that they should know now it's time to change your behavior.
So you just took me down a path that's one of my necessary endings. There's a book called Necessary Endings, and it's about leadership. And you're right. Steve's come in 3 or 4 times. And you finally say, Steve, we need to have a necessary ending conversation. We need to move you to another position because this doesn't fit you. And we want you. We like you. And we have to move you. Or the necessary ending conversation is, we've been here a couple of times now. And we have to realize not a healthy fit for you, not a healthy fit for us. We don't want the toxic atmosphere. So we need to outboard you with grace. How hard is it to have those conversations with necessary endings and live out your values and morals?
Yeah, here's the deal. You keep that one toxic person on the team, that's all it takes to destroy an entire team, an entire culture. I had a CEO who asked me, she's like my best salesperson I've had multiple conversations with. They lack integrity. They don't show up on time. They have a bad attitude, but they're my best salesperson. What do I do? Do I keep them? Do I let them go?
Right.
And I looked at her and I said, do you want me to sugarcoat this for you? Or do you want me to be blunt with you and tell you like it is? And she said, be blunt. She kind of said it that way. And I looked at her and I said, as long as you're keeping this toxic person around, because that's what they are, they're toxic to everybody else, you're going to start to see these behaviors trickle down to other people. People are going to resent you as the leader, and they're going to mistrust you now. They won't trust you as a leader because you're not doing the things that you promised them you would do as a leader in order to create an atmosphere that they will all enjoy being in. And if you can't allow one thing for one person and not for everybody else. So if you're going to have a non-negotiable behavior, hold those people accountable, be willing to have those conversations, or be willing to coach them up or coach them out.
Now here's a weird one that people like perks. We like the vacation, we like the awards, we like the accolades. But I've also read in some areas that throwing perks at employees doesn't really hold them. In fact, it sometimes pushes them out faster because it feels like a gimmick. Is there some truth to that?
Yeah, there's a lot of studies right now showing that the ping pong tables, the pizza parties, everything that you're hearing about, come to, work on Fridays in your jeans or, all of those. It's great if you can implement some perks for people, but if it's not backed up with a great culture the rest of the time, then you're failing your people because they're going to look at what you do, not just this percentage of the time. They're going to look at what you do all of the time. And they're going to trust that whatever culture you're presenting to them, the majority, 90% of the time, is the culture that currently exists in the company. And it needs to match. That's where we're finding that the employee experience doesn't match what the leaders and especially the executives think that it actually is.
So, what about the leader that's inherited a company? They come in, they have the shuffle the deck of leadership, and they've inherited a company that doesn't have this destination atmosphere at all.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them about how to begin to climb out of that and rebuild it? Where do they start?
The first thing I always say to do is start with an audit. Assess where you are currently at. You've got to know how people are feeling, and it needs to be very real. Once you understand where they're at, from there, you need alignment with all, especially within your leadership team. So you get your leaders together. This is where our culture strategy sessions are for, creating the alignment across leadership. This is the direction we're going. These are the core values that we want to be put in place. Here's what it looks like to display them and hold people accountable to them. Here's our other culture initiatives. Here's who's responsible for what. Go, right? We've got alignment. Now people can go. Then we need to look at the employee experience. We need to say, okay, where are we currently failing people in the employee experience? Where are those friction points where we can actually improve and make it better? And then from there, we need benchmarks and metrics. So, are we looking at, are you waiting till the end of the year to actually look at it and say, hey, is this strategy working? Or are you every 3 months looking at it and saying, where are we? Are you having meetings that mean something on your leadership team?
So, take that into the virtual world. Everything you said was gold, absolute gold. Replay that, rewind it, do it again. How do you do that in the virtual world? Because they're not physically together, but there are ways to have that glue be so good they want to participate, right?
Yes. Well, that's where if I'm holding a meeting with my team and first of all, assess, you can still assess, right? You can still do an audit and assess where your current culture is at virtually, how people are feeling. It's the same in those 5 areas, by the way, that I talked about earlier. Yeah. Same 5 areas. It's just virtually how they're feeling about it. And then after that, alignment. So getting your leadership team together on these calls, and you go through that same strategy session, you go through the same employee experiences. And then when you're having meetings with your team, you could do breakout sessions with them and say, hey, everybody bring one challenge that you're having, and we're going to go through and do a collaborate and innovate session. And I'm going to put you in breakout sessions. And maybe it's people from other departments or somewhere else around the world that they've never spoken with before, and they get to know their people. Then they start to feel like I'm actually a part of a team. I'm not alone here.
Right. Something bigger than themselves and a cause bigger than themselves is worth being invested in.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So before our time gets away, I do want to bring up your website. And what are they going to, you're a keynote, you're an author, you're a consultant. What are they going to find when they beam into your website?
If they're looking for help with leadership or workplace culture, we have some amazing training programs. We've our culture audit and strategy session. I always say that's the best place to start. But you're looking for a keynote. Rich, I'm high energy. I say I'm not a podium speaker. So if you want someone to stand behind a podium, read some notes, I'm sorry, I'm not the right fit. But if you want high energy and interaction from your crowd, I love it's our sweet spot, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's our sweet spot. We love it. So yeah.
Well, actually, I've seen the video of you backstage. You're dancing, you're moving, you're doing. So
It never stops.
What's your favorite air guitar song? Because I have one that I use all the time. What's your favorite air guitar jam?
Oh, air guitar. Okay, so that's a little different.
Come on.
Hmm. I actually am gonna have to think on that. I'm trying to think. It's a song I think I wake up to in the morning.
Okay.
Thank goodness my husband likes it. Hip to be square. I think it's hip to be square.
Huey Lewis.
I'm an 80s girl. I'm an 80s girl all the way. But I believe it's that one that does have the guitar solo somewhere in there. And I'm always I wake up and I'm like, kind of like, okay, there, let's play it.
And leaders need that. And they have their own releases, and it really does work.
Yes. What's yours? I have to know what's your guitar song.
Carry On, Wayward Son.
Well, okay.
It's always been. Crank it up to 12, baby. Now, a couple fun questions before we wind down. If you could design your own dream workplace, you already have, but if you could design your own dream workplace for yourself, what would be the number one element you would add in to make your dream environment possible?
Ooh, that's a good one. So are we talking physically? Are we talking?
It could be anything. This is your chance to sculpt your dream workplace. What would be that number one thing you would have to have right away?
I'd love to have a track out back somewhere where you could go and do like a rope course or just something fun. And pets in the workplace. There you go. If you said number one thing, pets, friendly pets that come in the workplace.
One final question. You are known as the culture queen. If you could rule the kingdom, your own magical kingdom, what would be the first law you would pass to make that kingdom a reality?
Oh, okay. That's an intriguing. What law would I pass?
What law would you pass for your magical kingdom? You worked in the magic kingdom, but what law would you pass for your kingdom, queen?
I think I'd have to be with you on the fun aspect of it, because for my company, fun is not an option; it's a strategy. So it's actually one of our core values is fun is our strategy, because keynoting, fun, trainings, fun, virtual, fun. I mean, everything that we do, fun needs to be sprinkled into every conversation and everything. So that would have to be first and foremost. Yeah.
Can I get an amen on that?
Amen. Yes.
Betsy Allen-Manning, thank you for being here on Rock the Stage Show. There is so much to glean out of what you're doing. I love your performances. If you're ever in the Washington, D.C. area, we have got to connect and have a little bit of fun.
Yes, absolutely. I'm down for that. Thank you so much, Rich, for having me. You are an extraordinary interviewer. I had a lot of fun on this.
Betsy Allen-Manning, thanks for being here on Rock the Stage. That's going to do it for this one tonight. But man, I hope you got a bunch out of that. I did. And I'm a leadership guru junkie myself. I love getting into the meat and bones of it. But go back to those cultural questions. Go back to those values that we were discussing. Ask yourself, if you're bumping into that toxic atmosphere, how are your values? What are your values? Does your team know your values? Don't assume they know it because you told it to them during orientation. Take a little tidbit out of Betsy's playbook and repeat them. Repeat them and repeat them. That's going to do it for this edition of Rock the Stage Show. We'll be back next Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, for another edition. In-depth conversation, highly unscripted, and hopefully a lot of fun that's going to help you shine brighter on stage, camera, microphone, and grow your business. We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, for Rock the Stage Show.